All right. Without further ado, I'm going to say welcome to John Froeschauer, who is our speaker tonight. He's going to be talking about moths and butterflies. He's been well trained in conservation. He worked with state parks, Tennessee state parks, as a ranger. For a while, he was at Radnor Lake. In 1989, he became the regional interpretive specialist for state parks in Middle Tennessee. He oversaw the seasonal ranger program and worked with exhibits, events, and resource management projects. He oversaw the state park Iris license plate program beginning in 1996, but now he's retired. And John continues to inform the public about our native plants and butterflies. He's been giving talks with other groups as well and working on Mac Pritchard's legacy.
Yes.
We'll say, I'll say legacy.
Yes.
John, welcome to the group. I know you have a really good presentation because I've already seen it, but I think everyone's going to be in for a treat. Lots and lots of beautiful photos. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and hit that share screen at the very bottom where it's green.
All right. Do I have to pull my program up first or no?
That would be good. Either way.
All right, pull it up as. Here's the program. So
now the green button at the bottom that says share
well,
screen.
this program takes up the whole. This image takes up the whole screen. So maybe I have to do the share screen first. Let me see. Okay. Oh, there we go. Compatibility mode. I guess that's what I want, right? There we go. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
And let's see, slideshow from beginning, which is beginning. Okay. So can everybody see that?
Yes.
Everybody's on board. Okay. And can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody hears okay. All right. Okay. Well, I'll just get started then. I'll start off with the image of a bird, actually, observing butterflies and moths to a lesser degree has been really brought forward by several things, and two of which we're familiar with is a book that's very easy to use in the field, Butterflies Through Binoculars by Jeff Glassberg. If you want to study butterflies, this is the one to have to put in your pocket. And then there's one that I'm sure most of us are familiar with, the one that Rita Venable wrote, The Butterflies of Tennessee, which narrows it down a bit further. It's a little bit big to use in the field as a quick reference, but this is good. I typically will use the Glassberg book and then go to Rita's book as kind of a secondary source. But they're both great books, and I'll talk a little bit about caterpillars too. And here's a real good caterpillar book. If you're not familiar with this one, the Wagner book, Caterpillars of Eastern North America. It's very informative. I used to use a little golden guide. So many of us, grew up on the little pocket golden guides, and the one on butterflies and moths. I liked it so much because it had great caterpillar pictures. But this one came along, and it's a real tome. Really, it kind of squished it like a bug. And but it's a fantastic book, very full of good information. And you may think, oh, I'll never find my caterpillar in here. But if you look hard enough and deep enough, it's probably in here. Another one, it's on the shelf here. Excuse me. This is I meant to have these out before. The Peterson Guide to Moths, and you have a couple that look they look identical here. One is northeastern North America, and one is southeastern North America. and there's a whole lot of overlap in these books. Only the one in the southeast, as you may think, this really contains species that are in the deep south, pretty much, down the coastal plain and down, below the fall line, down to the Gulf coastal plain, and maybe some of the Memphis species also, so species that you would see pretty much in the Memphis area, but you wouldn't really see in Nashville. It's a little farther north. So those are good books to have, and then the other innovation is the close focusing binoculars. You wouldn't really need these for botanizing, but for observing butterflies, these are something they can focus. Typically they focus between like 4 and 6 feet, and I know with my pair I can look at a butterfly on my big toe. But so anyway, starting off with birds here, this great crested flycatcher was photographed by Richard Connors, and he's holding a hapless little praying mantis in his mouth. So here we have, we can see a food chain being pulled here, and that's what I like to think of instead of butterfly gardening, just specifically to we're thinking of attracting butterflies. I'm thinking of a food chain. Think of the kind of a comprehensive view of it, where that insectivorous bird is eating the praying mantis, which in turn is a carnivore itself. It feeds on other insects, which are turn out to be consumers. Many of them feed on vegetation. So it's great to have these things in the backyard, and through some of the things that I'll describe here, and some of the things some of you're botanists, so you'll know a lot of this stuff already. We'll see if we can get these food chains and food webs going in the backyard. This, of course, the hummingbird is a little bit different. It is carnivorous too. They like insects, and particularly spiders. They really depend on spiders for nesting material. If you ever seen a hummingbird nest, it's about the size of half of a golf ball, and it's just composed of little lichens and little bits of leaves, all put together with spider silk. But they, of course, are nectar sippers also. This one going after the spotted jewelweed here has a nice long beak and a long tongue. You don't see butterflies going after jewelweed that much, or this plant either. We know this one is a trumpet creeper, a great big tubular flower here that where butterflies can't get that coil proboscis into very easily, but with his bill, long bill and tongue, the hummingbird can access it pretty easily. So, but we'll look at some things that the butterflies can access. First of all, this is usually a harbinger of spring. One that you'll see as the days of winter get warmer in March, mid to late March, you'll see the morning cloak butterfly flitting about, and it's not a big nectar butterfly. Not all butterflies are really going after flower nectar. You'll sometimes see them on puddles, in puddles or in mud, sipping nutrients and salts out of the mud, or even in dog do. For some reason they get things out of excrement, and this is one that tends to do that. And this is one, Bart and I were talking about some butterflies being rather fresh and some being kind of tattered. This one looks pretty fresh. It usually has one brood a year, but will overwinter. If it overwinters as an adult under tree bark or something, it might look pretty ratty when it comes out in the spring. And then he's probably seen it too. You see a very fresh one and then followed by a very tattered one. The fresh one probably overwintered as a chrysalis, and so it's freshly emerged in early spring. So that's something to look out for. Here's another one you'll see in spring. This is one of the angle wings here, very kind of angular wings, and it's called a question mark. And you might think, I used to think that that this little curve here looked like a question mark, but it's not that at all. It's this mark right here, which is kind of a stylized question mark, which gives it its name. And it's another one that you'll see nectaring in mud, or this was on the side of the road at Montgomery Bell, just nectaring right between the pebbles there, and probably picking up some moisture here. And so here's another one that you'll see in the spring. It also has a summer form that in which the wings are a little darker too. It's second brood here, but and these are this is one of the little brown jobs, the LBJs here. This is called a wild indigo dusky wing, and I know Rita gave me at one time. I'm going to find it somewhere. Is a dichotomous key to dusky wings. That's how difficult they are to distinguish. There's another one that comes out in the early spring called a juvenile's dusky wing, and as sap flows into trees in the spring, you notice you might see woodpecker holes or other wounds just oozing sap, and you'll see a lot of these guys puddling. It's called puddling. A whole bunch of them get on the wound there and drink the sap from it. So this is these dusky wings are part of a group called the skippers, and if you notice their antenna, they're kind of spoon shaped. They're not they don't look like little drumsticks. They're more like little spoons. So that's the dusky wings here. And here's our state butterfly. Everybody should know this one, the zebra swallowtail. It'll do a little bit of both. You'll see it on flowers, but you'll see it down in the mud too, along with the others. And it comes along in early spring once the leaves of the pawpaw start coming out, and that's its only food plant. And here's a caterpillar right here, which is a rather rare sight. One way to look for caterpillars, that's the way birds do it, is look for chewed leaves, very simply, and you might find the caterpillars. But I challenge you to find a zebra swallowtail on a pawpaw, despite having chewed leaves all over the place. They tend to feed at night, and they go down and they nest. They rest in the leaf litter during the day, and they come out in order to thwart predators. They'll come out during nighttime. Now, this was at Burgess Falls a few years ago, and if you've been up there, the traffic islands have been converted to butterfly plots, and they have a butterfly festival. And I was working it was in August one year, and it was so hot. It was god awful hot. And I think what happened was the caterpillars were getting too hot, and they just came out. There were two of them that came out on this branch here, so I was able to get a picture of one here. And we talk about complete metamorphosis. Butterflies go through complete metamorphosis. They hatch from an egg into the larva, the caterpillar stage, and then go into the resting stage of the pupa, and then emerge as an adult here. And we can always tell a swallowtail chrysalis because it sits upright there. They all caterpillars have silk glands, silk glands in their heads, and they spin a little dot of silk here. They stick their rear end on it, and then they, much like a window washer on a skyscraper, they have a safety belt that holds them upright. And they tend to look really anthropomorphic too. You see the little ears, looks like an eye and a nose. And but note the coloration. I mean, it's a real master of disguise here. It blends right in with the leaves, complete with the venation on the leaves being replicated. Here's another master of disguise. This happens to be a caterpillar of the red-spotted purple butterfly. And what does it look like? Looks like a big bird turd, you know. And since birds are a primary predator of caterpillars, since they wouldn't want to eat their bird poop, this protects them very well. He's also got these big menacing-looking clubs on his head that actually they can't sting or do anything. They can't really hurt us at all, but he can swing that head around, and it might scare a potential predator away. Now, also, this one is feeding on cherry here, and you may have read that the wonderful book "Bringing Nature Home" by Doug Ptolemy, and I've read in it, and you may have read in it, where actually oak trees provide the most food for provide food for the most Lepidoptera species in the eastern U.S. So something like 356 species or something feed on oaks, particularly red oaks. And you ever walk under a red oak tree during the middle of the summer and start getting a little inchworm silk all over you, and they'll start crawling on your collar there. That's that's why that oak is feeding a lot of caterpillars. And that is followed by willow, and then followed closely behind by cherry. So black cherry is a great, real workhorse of a food plant to have in the backyard. I have a couple that I use for net rearing certain species, and I just cut them in half. You can do it's called stooping on them. You just cut the tree in half, and it might not look very good, but you'll have a lot of sucker branches that'll come up with some nice luxuriant, nice tender young leaves on it, and that's the type of leaves that they prefer. So when they're ready to pupate, instead of sitting upright, they'll spin their little dot of silk here, and they'll suspend themselves from it. You can still see it looks very much like a caterpillar, the head, the little horns here, and it'll molt that skin and still look like a little glistening bird turd. And we'll sit there for about 10 days or so, 10 days to 2 weeks at the most, and will emerge as the red spotted purple butterfly. And this one is common. Starting about June, you really see them, and they have about 3 broods. They go through that life cycle about 3 times during the course of the summer, so they'll be around all summer pretty much. And if you look at it here, it looks pretty much. It almost looks blue more than purple. And if you look at the underside, you see orange dots here. So it could almost be called an orange spotted blue. But there's another group of butterflies called the blues, so it might cause confusion here. So this is a red spotted purple. Now look here, you see in the hind wings, and you start observing butterflies. A lot of times you'll see some chomps taken out of the hind wings here, and once you start looking at butterflies, you'll see the hind wings. All butterflies have 2 sets of wings here: the forewings and the hind wings. A lot of insects. Most insects have 2 sets of wings, and the hind wings usually have a lot of a little more elaborate decoration on them, and that causes predators to think that's the head end. So they think they're chomping on the head, they're chomping on the tail. Butterfly flies away to live another day. So now here's another caterpillar. It's like a red spotted purple here, but it is feeding on a cottonwood leaf. Found this over at Ellington Agricultural Center, and if you want to bring one of these things home and rear it, or if you're taking pictures of it, make note of what it is feeding on. That's very important, because if you want to raise it up in a container or something, you'll have to feed it the food it was whatever you found it on, pretty much. Some caterpillars can change food plant, but most of them, once they begin after a few days just feeding on one food plant, they're pretty much hardwired to it. Excuse me. and so they have to stick with that plant. I've tried changing food plants after a week or so, and they'll starve before they'll feed on a new food plant. And then others I've seen just switch right over to another food plant. Anyway, red spotted purple. It's not a red spotted purple. It sure looks like one. It's in the same group. Is this a monarch? Excuse me. A bit smaller than a monarch. This is the monarch mimic, known as the viceroy, and it's called the post-median band right here that goes through the hind wing that the monarch does not have. So, but this one is edible, whereas the monarch picks up glycosides from the milkweed that it feeds on and is poisonous. So this is one form of mimicry that helps protect the viceroy. So this, we're probably familiar with this flower, right? The Dutchman's pipe, or the woolly Dutchman's pipe, in particular in Middle Tennessee here. This is one I have in my backyard. I started butterfly gardening here, I guess about 23 years ago, and I love those flowers of the Dutchman's pipe here. And I got several trees that are just covered with it now. You can see those vines that they've been on there a very long time, and they look very much like they do like along the Duck River or the Harpeth River. Pretty much just festooning the trees, and hanging down with those weird seed pods there. But this feeds the pipevine swallowtail, and that's probably the most abundant butterfly that I get in my yard, because I got so much pipevine here. And this is the Oversolokia tomentosa. There's one the macrophylla, I believe it is, the East Tennessee um, species that is supposed to be pretty much confined to East Tennessee, but I found it in some property I have up in Macon County, which is kind of interesting. It's in the outer Central Basin. Anyway, here's the caterpillar of the pipeline swallowtail, and it looks like he's about to bust out of that skin. And they do just that. Much like a snake, they will shed their skin 4 or 5 times, and they may change appearance dramatically, or they may stay looking like just looking the same, the way the pipeline swallowtail does. And it's called an instar. Each time they shed their skin, it's called an instar. But they will munch away on the pipeline leaves, and eventually form a chrysalis. We can tell he's a swallowtail. He's upright here with his little safety belt here. Again, looking like a little person there. Ears and eyes and nose, and a very alligator-like tail. Very strange looking. And they can sort of, their color can be a little different as well. It's got a yellow here, but kind of remind me of those Easter Island statues, that those things with great big ski nose and deep set eyes there. But this is the adult. It's a rather small, it's kind of a medium-sized swallowtail. Not as big as a tiger or a giant swallowtail, but has a sort of bluish cast on the hind wing. And if you get it in the right light, it's kind of green. So you look in old field guides, this is called a green swallowtail. And then they switched to pipeline swallowtail. I don't know when there. But what do we see it nectaring on? This is a thistle. This is the Russian bully right here. This is the one we don't like. One the farmers don't like getting in their field here. But in spite of that, it is a good nectar plant. The thistles, of course, in a composite there, lots of little flowers. And if they can land on it, they can sit on it for an hour and just get all kinds of nectar from it. This is the caterpillar of our largest butterfly, the giant swallowtail, and it too looks like a big bird turd. The perspective on it, I got this off the internet actually, and at full size, these are maybe a little bit bigger than your pinky. He looks like he's pretty giant and pretty big in this one, but yeah, he's got the visual defense there of looking like a bird dropping, and all swallowtails have a chemical defense also. If you prod and poke them enough, you bother them enough, they'll put these two fleshy horns out called osmeterium, osmeterium, and they contain just kind of a sweet, acrid smell. It's a weird smell. It smells kind of sweet and to us, but kind of nasty. But if there's something of a similar size going after, it would probably be like a skunk. It would be very strong here. And I'd be careful if you do this. It can't really hurt you, but if you touch these fleshy horns there while you're prodding it, poking it there, that smell will stay on your fingers for a long time. It's kind of like if you handle a garter snake and they musk on you. You can wash it off, but the smell stays with you for some time. So anyway, that's what how swallowtail caterpillars defend themselves. Here also is another master of disguise here. We see the stick just covered with lichens here, but if we look a little closer, particularly at this one right here, this is the chrysalis of the giant swallowtail. Very well camouflaged. There's another one above it too. I wish this picture was excuse me, another one right here. Now, if we turn the same stick at a different angle, we see, yes, two chrysalids above one another, one above the other. We can see their characteristic silk safety belt here. And so that's a wonderful disguise there. And they feed primarily on wafer ash. In Florida, they're considered actually an agricultural pest on citrus trees. They'll eat lime and lemon, lime, orange trees, and the caterpillars are called orange dogs or orange puppies, and they're very plentiful of that. But around here, they like wafer ash, and so I've got that planted and I've attracted them with it. Here's the adult right here. Very wide wings. This has probably a 5-inch wingspan, a very large wingspan here. And here we see it nectaring on Phlox divaricata, the nice woodland phlox. And this is a butterfly. Some you will see like only in open areas, kind of like birds. Some birds will only like one habitat. You'll only find them in one habitat and not the other. But this one you'll find in the woods as well as out in the open here. And I guess mainly because you'll find that you'll find the wafer ash in the woods. Hop tree is another name for it. But at any rate, it looks like a bat flying around. So big kind of deep wing beats here. And so in the middle of the afternoon, you think you've got a bat here. Um, this is thistle right here. And here's a giant swallowtail. We see the underside has a lot of yellow on it. Whereas the top side just has those few lines here. But this is the good thistle. This is searching this color, the field thistle, which this is in my yard here, and this gets about 8 feet tall or so. And it's a biennial. So when I started getting going, I would only see it every other year. But once it started seeding itself pretty much, it shows up every year. But being a wildflower, it's kind of a free spirit. It does not necessarily come up at the same place every year. But so if you've got a very small plot, be careful about putting this here. But like that Russian thistle, it's got a little smaller head, but a great place, a great landing platform for butterflies. And as I mentioned, that's exactly what they like here. Here's a Gulf fritillary that's feeding on a house leek or some domesticated sedum right here. But he's in high cotton right here. He can just plop right down on this thing. Doesn't have to spend any energy hovering or wearing himself out, just trying to position himself. He can just sit there and just nectar on those flowers all day. So that's this is the sort of plant they you should put in the garden there. Well, we talked about the phlox earlier. I'm sure you know your phloxes pretty well. But the stolonifera, is that the creeping phlox? I think you might put that in the front there. Then the woodland phlox gets maybe 2 feet tall or so. That goes behind it, and then maybe tall garden phlox you'd want behind that. So you have different levels. Butterflies like different levels. Some of them like it to be a little closer to the ground than others. So another good plant. It's not native, but it's pretty innocuous. Is lantana. They love lantana. Great nectar plant. And they butterflies seem to go for reds and orange and blue and purple, more so than yellow. Yellow and white are kind of secondary colors. But the most favored seem to be those blue, purple, reds, and oranges here. But same thing, nice big landing platform that this clouded sulfur can just sit on and nectar to his heart's content. And here's one, not so much a nectar plant, but a good substitute for the Queen Anne's lace, the invasive Queen Anne's lace. It's in the carrot family, golden Alexanders. This is outside the Nature Center at Cedars, Lebanon here. This one, if you look close enough, you might find the caterpillar to the black swallowtail on it. There's a little characteristic saddle mark here, feeding on the vegetation. And this is the first instar. He's about ready to shed his skin. And this is I believe this is the fourth instar right here. That he'll shed his skin once more, and the little band here will kind of be turned bright green in color before he pupates there. And here he's feeding on garden rue, which is exotic. And this is in my yard, and I've got it growing near some golden Alexanders, and they seem to prefer this to the golden Alexanders. And also the giant swallowtails like this. And I've got some hop tree. I got several hop trees growing here and there, and they really go after this garden rue. So, and I'm having a hard time finding it. I'd plant more. It's not very invasive at all or anything. And I'm in a little urban yard, really. So, if someone knows where to get it, please tell me, because I'm having a hard time finding it anywhere. And seeds as well as plants. So, anyway. So that's another good food plant here. So it's the garden rue. I heard some people get dermatitis from contacting it, and I never had any problem with it. But, here's the black swallowtail adult here, a little blue on the hind wing, and sort of looks like a relative of the spicebush swallowtail, which we'll see. but he's nectaring on zinnia. Zinnia, another fantastic plant. And I've heard both zinnias are actually supposed to be native, maybe native to the Midwest or Midwest US. I'm not really sure, but they're a composite. And sure enough, he's plopped right down on top there and drinking, um, getting plenty of nectar from this particular flower here. And zinnias come in all shapes and sizes, and so they're a great nectar plant. Oops. This this is one that's still around here. It's kind of going out now. This is in the front yard here. I leave it up, the Daisy fleabane, or maybe Philadelphia fleabane. I forget which one here, but it is white, so that the butterflies aren't after it as much as they are the more colored flowers. But I leave it up there because some of them do like it. So I just mowed it down. Actually, it was starting to go out, so I just mowed it down the other day. So if you got little naturally occurring pockets of flowers, yeah, leave them up and let them have at it. This, I'm sure we're all familiar with this guy, the monarch caterpillar. Happens to be feeding on the butterfly weed, which is of course a fantastic nectar plant. Just summer, they bloom all summer long. Loves drought, very drought tolerant. Nice big platform of orange flowers that they really go after, and they eat the leaves too. The butterfly weed does not contain the glycosides that the other species of milkweed have, but it's still a good viable food plant for them. In this part of the country, I've read that the common milkweed, the Asclepias syriaca, and incarnata, the swamp milkweed, are the two most favored food plants of the monarch butterfly. So, and here we have one along with some little aphids that are feeding on that milky sap also. And we know, oh yeah, this another one. Milkweed, gotta be careful how you use it because it's another free spirit. I planted this in my backyard and it would not come up. It would not come up. It was way in the back where I have my butterfly garden. Well, where does it come up? In the front yard, and particularly right next to the walk here, or right in the cracks in the sidewalk. I don't know what's going on here. I think it's messing with me somehow. It's just we have one growing where I think it should right here, but yeah, so much of it grows here, and these will get 5 feet high anyway, and they kind of bend over. But beautiful pink flowers, so it's a good nectar plant as well as food plant. But again, it's not gonna behave itself. So be caveat emptor with this one also. Of course, the clover, I try to leave patches of clover in the yard when I'm mowing when it's growing too, because there are a lot of the small butterflies like to get on the clover. Little blues like clover. This is called honey vine, which is it's not an vine milkweed like anglepod is, but it's in the dogbane family. I think I wrote down what it is. I guess I didn't write down exactly what species it is, but it is in the dogbane family, and it's got very smooth milkweed pods. They're not spiny. They're not spiny looking, and don't have angly wings on them too. They're very smooth, smooth in shape, and they what I've read about this is that monarchs don't eat it. Well, this is in my front yard here, and there's a monarch eating it, and I've seen it. I think 1 or 2 instances before where I was pulling it up. It does get kind of weedy, and I started pulling some of it up, and I found monarch chrysalids on it, chrysalids hanging from it. So apparently they're eating it. And the thing is, there's a common milkweed plant about 2 feet away from this. So I'm thinking the female that laid this egg preferred to actually chose to oviposit on this instead of the common milkweed. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if anybody has got any other experience with the honey vine and this species, but don't pull it up. Keep it in the yard here because it may be feeding monarchs for you. And of course, that monochrystal is just a piece of art. Just this lovely gold spots all over it. Absolutely gorgeous. And and of course they winter in the Gulf of Mexico. We have the California population wintering down down Southern California here, but the ones here are heading to central Mexico and taking about 3 or 4 broods to get to the southern Canada and then back down here. And if I guess Bart may correct me or not, but it seems like at least in this Middle Tennessee here, it's very much September, maybe late August through like mid-September is when they're really coming through and they're breeding. Right now we're coming through. We were talking about before. I had like 5 coming through. I did not see any oviposing at all. If you watch these guys, they will curl their abdomen underneath and deposit a single egg on the underside of the milkweed leaf, and I did not see any of that. So they don't seem to be interested in breeding here right now. I guess they're just continuing to go north. So, but come September, we'll start seeing the caterpillars. I mentioned, I was in charge of this Irish license plate fund for 22 years. I guess I was the first administrator of it, and it's now being administered by the natural areas people. So, and they've been doing similar work with it in habitat restoration. We went from doing like simple landscape projects to doing something that had a little more meaning, like butterfly gardens, like the one behind Cedars Lebanon. We put in with that funding, and we did a lot of exotic plant removal with it. But anyway, you can see some garden phlox here growing with some hypericum, which is a yellow, nice large yellow flowers, and cardinal flower, and quite a few other things in here. Linda Robertson does a fantastic job with the Wilson County group in this particular place here, and of course milkweed just kind of doing what it wants to here. It's overshadowing the bee balm or monarda, which is a good nice purple color here. Another good butterfly nectar plant. And we can't forget the grasses here. Grasses are very important food plants. And I forget which one this is, a Panicum virgatum. But there's so many butterflies whose larvae feed on grasses. And there's a book on the butterflies of butterfly gardening for the Southeast with special reference to Texas, and it has a really good appendix in the back. And the plant species that feeds the most butterflies in that appendix is Bermuda grass. And I'm thinking, oh God, no, not that. Spent quite a bit of time and effort getting rid of that in these gardens there, so it doesn't overtake everything. But unfortunately, it feeds quite a few species. This is purple coneflower, another great drought buster. Really loves the heat of summer. Nice landing platform. All different cultivars of this. We call it Magnus, which has a great big flower on it. This is standing stone. They took a playground that had some wasn't really doing anything. Had a tire swing and a slide over here, so we took those off. And I worked with Mike Berkeley with Grow Wild Nursery, came up with a design here, and we put this wisteria on it. We think, oh, wisteria, this is the American wisteria, and it is a cultivar. It's available at the big box stores called Amethyst Falls. And another one, be careful how you use it, because if you take a look at this here, I regret putting that in this garden there, because it's just as horribly invasive as the Oriental wisteria. Spent a lot of time just pulling the skeins of it up. You pull it, it runs right along top of the ground, just like the Oriental wisteria does. But it feeds silver spotted skippers. It's a legume, so it feeds lots of butterflies like legume leaves. But you can get the straight species. I think Grow Wild is about the only place you're going to get them now. I'm not up on all the native nurseries as I once was. But is Sunlight Garden still around? Up there, Marty Zinni, Marty and Andrea up north of Knoxville. They used to sell the straight species here. I planted the straight species in my yard, and it just kind of crapped along until it finally crapped out here. Then we put some of the amethyst. I planted some of the amethyst falls, and it just kind of limped along. But my girlfriend lives in Dixon, Western Highland Rim, and it went nuts there, just the way it did up at Standing Stone, which is more like that's Eastern Highland Rim, kind of the edge of the plateau there. So I'm thinking that the soil's a little more acidic in those places on either side of the Central Basin. So if you live in those areas, be careful how you use this. And I should have put the straight species in here at Standing Stone. So just you may think in that direction if you're considering using the American Wisteria frutescens. And this is after probably almost 20 years now. This is how it looks in my yard. This is overgrowing a witch hazel tree right here. It's got these beautiful blue blooms, not quite as prolific as the Oriental Wisteria blooms, but it's still very nice. And it's taken years and years to do this. So this one in the Central Basin, anyway, this is Amethyst Falls. This will tend to behave itself. But so I would tend towards the, when in doubt, I would tend towards the straight species if you can find it here. Now, this is the caterpillar of the silver-spotted skipper. When they're real small, they'll take just a little section of leaf and they'll fold it, and they'll use their silk there and they'll pull it together. And when they get bigger, they'll pull several leaves together, and they're pretty easy to spot. Excuse me, here, and they'll so they're kind of safe inside their little shelter right here, but they all got to go to the bathroom sometime, and they produce lots and lots of fecula pellets known as frass. And as it accumulates on the ground below them, birds are pretty sharp. They can't smell, but they can see this pile of frass below a tree, and they'll start looking up in the trees. They're pretty smart. They figure out that there's a big juicy caterpillar up in the tree somewhere. So it and also wasps will actually pick up chemicals. They can actually smell what's in the frass, and they can start going after the caterpillar here. But what this one does, he builds up a lot of pressure inside his body, stick his abdomen out, stick his rear end out, and can shoot a frass pellet 100 times his body length. It's very and I've seen them do it. I've reared them in captivity and see that little rear end come out and he shoots it across the cage. It's pretty interesting. And so that's the way that the silver spotted skipper thwarts predators. But this was in Dixon here at my girlfriend's house, and she was out there one day, and there's a very opportunistic rough green snake here's our food chain right here, really going after systematically going from leaf shelter to leaf shelter, digging in and getting the caterpillars. Wrens will do this too. They're not, wrens, of course, very very inquisitive, and they'll dig inside these. They'll dig them out of the leaf shelters as well. So she ended up moving the snake off. I don't think he was too happy about it, but she moved him elsewhere so he wouldn't eat every single caterpillar up. And if it's able to run all that gauntlet there, it turns into the silver-spotted skipper butterfly. One of the easiest skippers to identify here. It's rather large, has a nice silvery white spot on the hind wing. Again, those little spoon-shaped antennae here. This is Nectarion Joe Pyeweed. Joe Pyeweed, another great composite there, a nice big blending platform on a good mid to late summer bloomer to have in the yard. Here's a liatris, and it's another one. I've tried planting in the yard. I've had trouble with liatris, and where I see it planted in other places, it does fairly well here. Another predator of caterpillars is there's a wheel bug, or similar to one of the assassin bugs here. And like all true bugs, it has a proboscis that folds down, very rigid, and harpoons caterpillars and sucks the juices out here. And here, this one is waiting for a butterfly or something to come along so that he can harpoon, just the way like a praying mantis would with his forelegs. There you find praying mantises on these on liatris as well. This is at Long Hunter State Park, and if you've been out of the deer trail there, it's one product. I noticed this growing between the successional cedar growth there, and I had AmeriCorps crews come out. We cleared this whole field here. We even burned it, and it's a great naturally occurring population of liatris there. And the park will do programs. I think about late June they try to get it when it's at its peak, because it brings in lots and lots of butterflies and all kinds of other bugs, and spiders, and everything else within the food chain here. So that's a good one to have here. Speaking of spiders, here is a great big garden spiders in my yard. And he's caught a nice big tiger swallowtail. So if they're big enough, they'll pretty much they can pretty much take down a pretty large butterfly. So anyway, here's another predator, actually a parasite. I'm sure you're familiar with this. These are the cocoons of the little brackenid wasp. I'm not sure which one. There are a number of species in North America, and this is feeding. They are on a Pandora's sphinx, which I found on the side of the house. There's a grapevine, as well as Virginia creeper, which is a food plant for this moth. It's actually a sphinx moth butterfly. A sphinx moth butterfly. Well, sphinx moth caterpillar. That, like all sphinx moth caterpillars, start off with a little horn, and as it gets into the later instars, it usually drops the horn here, except for maybe you've seen the tomato hornworm sphinx, this huge caterpillar covered with these things here. The brackenid wasp was maybe an 16th or 1/8 of an inch long. It lays eggs on the host here. The host, they hatch, they drill in, and they very ingeniously eat around the spiracles, the aortic arches, all the vital organs here, and they keep that host alive. And when they're ready to pupate, they pop right through the skin there and spin their little silk cocoon. And you might think, oh, I can save this guy. I'll just pull all those cocoons off and he'll live. Nah, he's toast. He's completely rotted out inside. He's not going to live much longer. So anyway, but speaking of moths, I'll kind of move on to moths a little bit. This is the caterpillar to our largest moth, the Cecropia moth. Some people call it a robin moth now because it's colored like a robin, but it's a very large caterpillar. So, spikes on his head. Starts off as a little black bristly thing, then has yellow on it, and it just keeps changing as it gets into the mature stage here. This one's feeding on cherry. Another one that loves cherry. They'll also eat box elder. They'll eat elm, persimmon, even buttonbush. And when it gets ready to pupate, it has one brood a year. It spins a very elaborate cocoon with over a mile of silk in it, and spins an outer cocoon, and then a very, very tough inner cocoon that of course, you can't see here. But yeah, there's over a mile of silk in this thing. And you think, okay, well, we've got a silk industry here. Not so. It's not laid down in one continuous strand the way the Oriental silkworm is. So they attempted it with several species. In fact, they brought a species to the United States for the silk industry called the Cynthia moth. It's one of the Saturniids, Saturniidae moths in this family, and it never really went anywhere. And there's a feral population of it in the Middle Atlantic region around the Baltimore area, in the Middle Atlantic states, right there. And I've never seen one in the wild, but they're supposedly around that, focused around that Baltimore area. They may be in another area too. I'm not sure. But anyway, it comes out. This is beautiful, 6-inch wingspan. And as with all the Saturniids there, these hind wings have these big eye spots on them. If you turn it over, what it look like? It looks like an owl. And of course, these are favorite food of screech owls. Screech owls, of course, a small owl, love cicadas, katydids, insects that are up in the trees here at night. So this is one way it protects itself. If moths cannot hear, but they have they pick up vibrations, and when they feel vibrations of a potential predator, they'll spread those forewings out and they'll display those hind wings, and it might scare away a screech owl. So they're let's see, quite an elaborate defense here. And these guys do not eat. Most moths do not eat. Sphinx moths do feed, with the proboscis like butterflies, as well as the underwing moths. But most moths, as most insects in their adult stage, they'll live maybe a week or two, about 2 weeks. Is about their entire lifespan. They do all their feeding, most of their living, about as caterpillars, and in that resting stage, they'll rest over winter for almost 9 months in that cocoon there, and they come out. The female will send out a pheromone that the male picks up with this very large feathery antenna that contain chemoreceptors, and they will get together. And you can see she is full of about 250 eggs, and so his abdomen is considerably smaller. But they tagged a male that actually followed a pheromone plume 7.5 miles to get to the female. That's amazing. Something we certainly can't smell or detect. The pheromone plume just, if it wafts out in a straight line, he crosses back, and just does a zigzag pattern, finding his way to the female here. So, and this is one we may be more familiar with. The Cecropia moth it's kind of rare, actually. You don't see it too much around here, but it is here. But this is the Polyphemus moth caterpillar. Of course, a nice camouflage green here. If they get bothered, they sort of rear up like a sphinx here and click their jaws, like make little clicking sounds. So that's what they'll do, and hopefully it'll scare away whatever might eat them there. And of course, this is the adult here with this big eye spots, and this is one I'm sure you've seen here, attracted to lights here and there. This is a male with a large feathery antenna. A female will have a shorter, rather more narrow antennae. So, and of course, this is probably the one we're most familiar with in this group, the Luna moth, moon moth, and again a male with a large feathery antenna, very well camouflaged as a leaf. And so, and these guys like walnut and sweet gum are the primary food plants here, and they will raise 2 broods a year, and they just spin a real flimsy cocoon in the trees there for their first brood, and the second brood they'll either crawl off the food plant and go down in leaf litter or in some little sheltered spot, or they'll just they will again spin the cocoon among the leaves and it falls to the ground. So that's the case for not raking up your leaves there. You know, that we're told, leave an area, leave a portion of the yard unraked, so it will provide a place for these, for the cocoons for the Luna moth here. This is the royal walnut moth caterpillar here, feeding on walnut here, also known as a regal moth, and he's America's largest caterpillar. He's larger than a Cecropia caterpillar, and he's got this very elaborate headgear. And he can't sting. That's I'm holding him there. I wouldn't be able to if he could. Typically, when they have a large individual spikes like that, they don't really sting. It's kind of the bristles, very fine bristles that'll sting. The IO moths will sting. The buck moth will sting, but these guys do not. But they can flail that head around, scare away predators that way. It also prevents taconid flies and other parasites from landing. They like to land and lay their eggs near the head. If they lay it down near the tail, the caterpillar can. There's a good chance he can get his head around there and knock it off there. So that's one reason they have all this elaborate headgear. So I read anyway. But anyway, they do not spin a cocoon. They burrow into the ground and kind of squirm around, and they secrete some fluid and form what's called a little cyst. And they will sit in it over winter, and then sometimes for even 2 years. If they don't necessarily, their life cycle will actually go a whole nother year sometimes. And this is the pupa with the cast off skin right here, and the little cyst here that it sits in for the winter. Comes out as this beautiful royal walnut moth. You know, it's a very and despite there being a very large caterpillar, gigantic caterpillar, it's not that big a moth. It's only maybe 2 inches long and maybe a wingspan of 2.5 to 3 inches. But still, it's gorgeous anyway. And there's a related species called an imperial moth, which is kind of the sort of mustard yellow with sort of this purpley purple coloration on it. But I love the colors of these things. They're just so fantastic. The cream and that sort of reddish brown, brownish red. Yeah. Here we know our state wildflower here, and we might know what feeds on it. Another one that doesn't behave itself, our purple passion flower. You can plant it next to a fence. Oh, this would be great next year when it comes up and grows along the fence. it may not show up there, but it'll show up 10 feet away, like right in the middle of something else. But anyway, it's a great food plant for the Gulf fritillary, as well as the variegated fritillary. And the Gulf fritillary shows up pretty much. It's kind of like the monarchs. They really show up in numbers around September. You'll see a few that are flying like during the spring, but you'll start seeing breeding in the mid to late summer here. And they will just continue to breed. They are migratory. They will migrate like towards the Gulf Coast, kind of a short distance migrant. But they'll just keep breeding and breeding until they get knocked out by the cold. They'll keep breeding and moving until they're knocked out by the cold. Now, if you don't want to, again, if you got a very small garden, you may not want to take a chance on the purple passion flower because it kind of goes crazy. But this is the yellow passion flower right here, Passiflora lutea, and I had this volunteered in the yard. And when I first moved in, I've been lived here 30 years, and it's always been here as a volunteer, and I just let it go. And the Gulf fritillary is like it too. It's got a flower similar to the purple passion flower, but it's considerably smaller, about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. The caterpillar likes to feed on that, as well as the fruit itself. That's about the size of a chickpea. That's a little like the maypop of the purple passion flower. That's the yellow passion flower fruit. Very small, and they love to feed on. But so that's a good alternative here. And there is the pupa, the chrysalis of the Gulf fritillary. It looks like a frog got them, but actually a lot of these guys, a lot of these critters, they'll crawl off the food plant to pupate. So it's good to have something around. I've seen people that have gardens where they'll have maybe a butterfly weed or something like that, and then just probably 10 feet of just flat compost, or maybe pine straw or something like that, and the caterpillar trundling across that is a sitting duck or a bird or something else. So if you just kind of keep it just kind of a little dowdy underneath there, these guys can easily find a place to pupate. And this is probably about 10 feet away from the passion flower right here, and you can see that here's one. There's two old chrysalids here, and this one has just emerged from it. So you can see just they tend to wander off to pupate. And here's one. Here's a cloudless sulfur that's underneath the window frame, or I should say at the top part of the window frame, right near where I had some partridge pea. Another one, be careful how you use it. Partridge pea is a good food plant, particularly for the sulfurs. They really like it, but it can go kind of crazy too. So I've battled it for years. I actually had to pull up so much of it. It just comes up in kind of a small amount now, and they do like it. And you might think, well, what about a butterfly house? If I put a butterfly house up, things will go in there and they'll take shelter. Nah, they don't really use them that much. If you're going to use one, put it like lower to the ground and maybe in the shade there where it's possible that a caterpillar might find it and overwinter in it, but there are lots of other things that will overwinter. You put strips of bark in it, and if you're lucky, maybe a morning cloak butterfly might get in and shelter for the winter. Well, I think the last time I looked at this on my back fence here, I opened it up and there's a great big brown recluse spider just one. Hey, put your hand in here, and so you should be careful with these things. This is something I've done with the canes of the Joe Pye weed and ironweed that I've had here. Of course, you probably know you've heard of leave plant canes up during the winter because there are certain things that will burrow into them and use them. But eventually, when spring comes along, that you get the new growth there. If you cut these down, I'd cut them into sections and jam them right underneath the soffit there. Of course, there's the little loop, little indentation here, and I've just jammed them in there, and they're taken up very quickly by mason wasps, which they carry little strips of bits of grass in there, and they'll make about 4 chambers that lay an egg in each one with a little, paralyzed spider. You know how they work here, much like a dirt dauber does. And then eventually in the winter, woodpeckers will start going after and start pecking into these things. You have to replace them every so often because they'll just start falling apart. But that's something you can do for the little wasp there. Unfortunately, wasps feed on caterpillars, so right, not the greatest thing to have in a butterfly garden. But think of the big picture and the whole food chain here. This is wild senna, another good food plant here, a legume here, and this is either a cloudless sulfur or maybe a sleepy orange. Not sure which. Some of these chrysalids are hard to tell apart, but these seed pods turn brown actually. And if you could imagine this being brown, this chrysalis just becomes part of the seed pod. That's pretty neat camouflage right there. So wild senna marylandica. And speaking of sleepy orange, here's some sleepy orange butterflies puddling, and we wonder, well, how do they get their name? A lot of butterflies, they'll have an eye spot on their wings, and these guys, instead of having spots, these guys have lines that resemble closed eyes. So they're sitting there puddling away with their eyes closed, but they could certainly see with their compound eyes. Another swallowtail, another good size swallowtail is our tiger swallowtail. Here's the mature larva right here. He spins a little mat of silk and likes to eat poplar. Poplar is a favorite food plant. Ash is another food plant. I think they feed on cherry also, but of course that's one of the ones easy to identify here. The male has very little blue at the bottom of the hind wing, whereas the female has lots of blue because of powdery blue on the hind wing there. So that's another good one to have. This is a long hunter right there, nectaring on the liatris. We look at this spice bush sapling here. This is in the yard here. I got a lot of spice bush now, and it grows all over the place. But if you look, there's a couple little folded leaves, and then maybe a little bit bigger one, and then an absolute bigger one, the entire leaf here. Like the silver-spotted skipper, the spice bush swallowtail caterpillar takes a leaf. They'll take a little section of leaf and they'll fold it over. They pay out a little mat of silk, and as it dries, it closes up, and they make a little shelter out of it. And as they grow, they outgrow the shelter. They just make a bigger and bigger one until they fold an entire leaf. And that's the early instar. Looks like a cross between a bird turd and a snake. These big eye spots here, even showing the reflective, what looks like the reflection off of the eye scale on a snake here. It's actually not a reflection at all. That's actual coloration on there to make it look like the reflective surface of a snake's eye. So it's a pretty elaborate defense here. And see, there's the mat of silk here. And you hold that open with a paper clip here. And that's the mature larva right there, again, with that weird little coloration on the eye spot here. And they have those osmeterian too. You bother them enough, they'll stick their horns out there. But they emerge into the spice bush swallowtail. Of course, one way to tell, if you get to look at these things, particularly in your binoculars here, these spots, these hind wing spots, the third one up looks like a little meteor. That's one way to remember this guy here. It looks like a little comet or a meteor here. And it's nectaring on the cardinal flower, another great flower for both hummingbirds and butterflies here. But I think you have to have kind of wet area to really have success with cardinal flower. Here's our coral honeysuckle with a hummingbird feeding on it. Of course, Richard Connors took that picture. I did not. We look a little closer. It is actually the food plant of the snowberry clearwing sphinx moth. Of course, it's a sphinx. It's got a little horn on its abdomen here, which cannot sting at all here. But they feed on the leaves there, and they become one of the clearwing moths, which is a great bumblebee mimic. Here's a male. This is probably the female on this side here. Looks a little bigger than this one here. This is about the most common of the clearwings. There's about half a dozen species of clearwings in Tennessee. And here's one that's nectaring on liatris and looking very much like a hummingbird. Sometimes they call hummingbird moths. But it's more a real bee mimic than anything. And they're wonderful to have around. So And if you look closely, you might find some really weird things. It was the summer before last. I'm walking in my driveway, and again, I have a couple of hackberry trees. So hackberries are a food plant for the snout butterfly, as well as the hackberry emperor and the tawny emperor. So here's a hackberry emperor, and I said, what's something funny about him? You look at he's got the head of a caterpillar. And sure enough, that's a better shot right there. he had he had a caterpillar head still on him. No eyes, no developed mouth parts at all, but he could turn that head around. It looked strange, like the movie The Fly. And I was like, help me, help me. It looked a strange looking thing. I tossed him up into the air. He could not fly. He just kind of fluttered to the ground. He had one, and instead of six legs, he had four and a couple like not very well developed ones right here. So I got some good pictures of him, and I sent him to the McGuire Center for Lepidoptera and Biodiversity at the University of Florida. It was recommended by Michael Byerly, actually. And so I put him in the freezer. The guy there told me, the guy I spoke with told me exactly how to package him. And he was very excited to see that. He goes, that, that happens in nature, probably it's not terribly uncommon, but it's very uncommon to make something to make it all the way to adulthood. So it was very interesting. He said he'd seen a few of those and he had a couple in the collection. So just things to look out for in your garden there. Also, these guys, they don't all eat leaves. This is a silvery checker spot caterpillar that likes to feed on petals. There are other little blues and hair streaks that like the petals of flowers. Some will eat the bracts of the dogwood leaves too. And there's the silvery checker spot right there that's nectaring on the blue mist flower. Another great one. I think you can buy that. It's in the trade now. It's kind of a weedy thing, but I have it grown all over the yard. I just let it grow all over the yard, and the butterflies love it. So here's a big patch of liatris up at the Savage Gulf Ranger Station. If you make it up there to South Cumberland Recreation Area, this was kind of an early Iris Fund project. Instead, this used to be mowed all the time, and seeded it in with liatris and coneflower, several other species here. And it's a great milieu for the great spangled fritillary, about our largest fritillary, I guess, that you see bouncing around there. But being where it is in the southern Cumberland Plateau, if you get up there, look around for this one. This is a rare one. It's called the Diana fritillary. And this is the male here who likes to get out in the open. If you want to see the female, take a walk in the woods. You don't see the female. The female looks different. She's sort of black. She's got that black coloration with white. Looks really kind of a good bit different. Resembles a butterfly called the white admiral. But anyway, you don't find her out in the field. You find her in the woods almost exclusively, and you find him exclusively out in the open here. So anyway, that's something to keep an eye out for. In midsummer on, I've seen them there. They used to have a very large range. It's been compressed pretty much down to the plateau and into northern Alabama. I've seen them at Cumberland Mountain. I've seen them in Pickett in the upper Cumberlands. And in northern Alabama, I think Joe Wheeler State Park, I've seen them down there. And so the only place I've seen them here. So they like those higher elevation areas, pretty much the plateau in Tennessee. So anyway, that's plant it and they will come. There's these sachems all over the liatris of Montgomery Bell. And I think that's about it. Asters, another good fall food plant, or the fire skipper. This is fiery skipper and a buckeye right here. And I think that closes the show. So
Well, thank you, John.
questions? Okay.
Yes.
I hope that made some sense.
Lots of tips of things to look for, where to look for them, and what things to plant. And there are a bunch of questions, some of which have already been answered in the chat, but we'll run through them.
Sure.
Maybe Bettina, you'll help me a little here. The first question is, wafer ash a kind of ash tree? Apparently not. It's in the Rutaceae or citrus family?
Uh,
Oh, then in
well,
Margie chimes in with uh, Petalea trifoliata,
yeah, exactly.
razor
Yeah,
ash or hop tree is not.
right. It's not an ash tree. It's not a fraxinus. Yeah, it's a Telea trifoliata. I think it's its own family, I believe. I don't know if it has any other relatives.
Mhm.
And then what was the question about the citrus? Did you say
No, that citrus family. It's
is
in
it
the
citrus family? Uh, I don't think it is. I believe it's its own family. I believe like
okay.
the Teleaceae, something like that. I may be wrong on that, but I haven't looked in a while. But yeah, if you have an orange tree of some kind of citrus in your yard, you know that I would think that they would feed on that also. But again, that garden rue, if you can find it, that's another good food plant for the giants.
Another one was the zinnia is native to Texas, but not Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah, I figured I thought it was more to the west here. Uh,
Mhm.
and there's another one like that. I want to say, and it was put in that Savage Gulf thing. I didn't know was put in the mix there. Is it Indian blanket? Is it Indian blanket found in Texas? But I know it's not here. It's not native here. But
I
uh,
don't know.
that's another one. Another good plant. Another good nectar plant. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's good to know about zinnia. Yes.
Another one is do zebra swallowtail larvae fold the leaves on pawpaw trees?
No. They will go down in they do their sheltering in down at the base of the tree. So I've not seen any evidence of them utilizing the leaves. But you'll see the
Bart,
chewed leaves. You will see the chewed leaves. Yeah.
Bart said thought that they do when they're smaller.
Oh,
Bart,
yeah, okay. That may be true. I've reared them when they're small. And actually, we were talking about cannibals earlier or carnivorous um, carnivorous caterpillars. You have to rear them separately because they will eat each other. The pawpaw, I mean yeah, zebra swallowtails are known for eating each other. I've reared them not in any great numbers at all, but I've not noticed them making any shelter. I'd like to know more about that. So, uh, okay,
and one comment is thank you for the seminar. It was really nice. I really enjoyed it.
great.
From Dakota. Does anyone else have questions? If so, unmute yourself and ask away here. Anyone? Okay.
Oh,
Silence. They must have asked all
okay.
of your questions.
Oh boy, I guess we covered all the bases.
And Telia and garden rue are both in the Rutaceae.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm corrected then on that.
Rue
Well,
and citrus family of flowering plants.
no, that's interesting. Okay, so that makes sense that they would like it. Um, and it's funny that the black swallowtail likes the rue also, when it's normally has that affinity for the carrot species, the wild carrot and the Alexanders and so on. So, I don't know. Is there anything else that black swallowtails eat? I don't know if whether Bart could answer that, but I don't know
I
that
don't know.
feeding on any trees at all, but
I haven't seen them use anything other than carrot family members, really.
right.
I think maybe in a garden situation, you might get something weird.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've not seen them anything other than just Queen Anne's lace and golden Alexanders. That's about it, and then the garden rue, of course. Yeah, so
And dill and parsley.
yeah, because of course the fennel and the dill and any of those any of that family. Yeah, they'll take care of your dill plants, right? Eat them right down to the nub. So
If anyone's looking for plants, there is a plant sale at Cedars of Lebanon on this Saturday coming. They had their annual plant sale. They've separated it from the Elsie Quarterman Festival. So Saturday, this coming Saturday is plant sale at Cedars of Lebanon. I'm trying to remember, I think it's like 10 to 3. So it's a native, I think it's pretty much native plants, if not all. So
Yeah, it's pretty much,
a good one to
it's
go
pretty
to.
exclusively native. Yeah, but it always has been. But
Yeah, it's a good little sale to go to. So if anybody's looking for specific plants now, that'd be a good place to hit if you're here in Middle Tennessee somewhere. Well, thank you very much, John. That was
Okay.
that was interesting, intriguing, and great pictures. And really thrilled that you joined us. It's
Yeah,
been lovely.
yeah, if any other questions or comments come out, you have my email address if you want to, pass that along if anybody else. Any other
Okay, I'll
questions come to mind or anything that
Okay.
I can't answer, Bart could probably answer it, I would imagine. So,
Well, a lot of folks have specialty areas where they
Right.
might know just a little bit more than a lot of others. And some know a lot about a lot of things, like Bart. All right.
great.
Lots of messages for loved it. Thanks. Thanks for a very interesting talk. Great presentation. Thanks. Excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you, John. This was great. Lots of lovely comments for you.
Well, great. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks very
And
much.
I
I'm glad to
thank you for coming.
have
And
fun doing it.
I thank everyone for coming to enjoy this nice seminar. It has been recorded, so if you need to go back and refer to something, it will be on our website by the end of the week on the seminars page.
Oh, great, great.
Okay.
And we do have someone asking specifically what the email is or where to find it.
Well, you want to rattle it off and I'll put it in the chat box. Otherwise, I'd have to pull up my email program.
So what's your email, John?
It's a JD as in Daniel, F as in Frank, ROES. So that's JDFROESCH at yahoo.com.
Okay, there it is for everybody. So if you need it, copy it down. Thank you again, John.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. Thanks very much. Very enjoyed it. Right.
We much appreciated your coming. And hope you join us again sometime.
Yeah, we'll see you in the counting butterflies somewhere. Right. Great.
Some of us.
Yep. All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Good night, everyone.
Night.